Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to a very special video with myself and the one and only, the badass himself, RexDaBoss11. How you doing, brother?
Hey guys, how's it going? Let's talk about the utter failure and disappointment that turned out to be the Arrowverse. I am good and it's nice to be back.
It's nice to be back too. This is going to be called How and Why the Arrowverse Succeeded and Failed. DC shows need to be on HBO Max. So, we're going to start with you, Rex. How do you think the Arrowverse succeeded? This is the first thing we're going to be starting off with.
Well, in the initial, if you could call it Arrowverse, because let's be fair, Arrow was just Arrow at the start, and it was basically its own universe. So this is obviously where the Arrowverse thing comes from. You know, some of the people who probably only started watching down the line might not even know what the Arrowverse is, because they only started watching, you know, later down the line with some of the other series. The initial year or two of Arrow, the first 2 or 3 series, must-see television. And, you know, I just feel like they had something that nobody else had at that point there. I feel like, you know, you had Game of Thrones and other programs that were on TV at that time, but Arrow just sort of tunneled all of the superhero genre into this watchable television series. And then, of course, when you started to add in the characters that people maybe wanted or didn't want to see, it worked. It just had this great formula, great format. And where I feel that they really succeeded was, you know, giving us characters that people might not necessarily know too much about, like the Green Arrow, like, you know, he's maybe overshadowed by Batman and Superman, etc. And I feel like they really got that right. They really got the Arrow character to the point where it, like I say, it was must-see TV. It made you want to see what you were seeing, and especially, you know, the characters, the cast of characters in the original few series, it was just hit after hit after hit when it came to who these characters were. And, you know, I'm always gonna talk about the wrestling side of things, but it was just great booking, great scripting, great just showmanship from these characters. It was almost like a live action wrestling show featuring superheroes at its height.
Absolutely, I agree. The thing I feel where the Arrowverse succeeded was they took DC characters who weren't necessarily well known. They weren't like household names like your Batmans or your Supermans or even your Wonder Womans. There were guys like they weren't really that popular. Well, they were popular, but not popular on that level. And, you know, it's hard to believe that the Arrowverse started almost 10 years ago. So you just think about that. All those shows, 10 years worth of storytelling, you know, on a television format. It's just incredible. And, you know, I remember when Arrow first came out, my initial reaction was it was going to be a Smallville spin-off with Justin Hartley from the Smallville show, because he was their Oliver Queen. And when I learned it was going to be Stephen Amell, it was going to be a much more grittier, darker take on Green Arrow, I thought this could work. I thought this could actually work. And initially I wasn't that keen on it because to me it just seemed like a rip-off of Batman, but he just had like a bow and arrow. But as you say, gradually over the course of time, it became like must-see TV that you every week was an event. Every episode delivered, as you say, every show was just hit after hit after hit, and it also helped open the door for, you know, like other characters like the Flash, Supergirl. You know, if you had said to me a long time ago, "Oh, Supergirl's going to have her own series," my reaction would have been, well, why would Supergirl have her own series? I mean, we all remember the Supergirl movie from '84, which we won't talk about because it was not that great. But to have her own series just would have been unthinkable, but it worked. Same with the Flash. You know, you see like guys like the Atom, Black Canary, you know, all these characters who were not very well known to like casual fans. And I think that's where the Arrowverse, you know, succeeded.
The one and only Deathstroke. And by the way, guys, if you do want us to review the Supergirl film, do not hesitate to ask us in the comment section below. It may be torture and it may not be the best idea, but if you really want to see two guys separately suffer in their own living rooms on their own sofas, then
Oh,
yeah, feel free to request us to
please
watch
do.
Supergirl thing. But yeah, Deathstroke is the one character where I think another success as well. Manu Bennett
Absolutely.
was up and coming on the TV circuit, and he, you know, he was a well-known, obviously, actor in the TV like genre. And the fact that they got him, he played an absolutely fantastic Deathstroke in the first couple of series of Arrow.
You even had like John Barrowman as well, who's a
Yeah,
major star in the BBC on Torchwood and Doctor Who. He played the Dark Archer slash Malcolm Merlin. You know, he did a really, really good job because I've always known John Barrowman to be playing like these campy, over the top, wacky sort of characters, but to see him actually play a very quiet, very sinister, evil, sort of like a villain, then later on like an anti-hero, like a Dark Archer, was just absolutely fantastic.
why it's great that we're doing this, because when this series came out, I can now, for the first time, we could have spoke about something about the Arrowverse all night, and if you didn't mention the name John Barrowman, I would not have thought of this. But then I'm going back to my original thought of exactly what you just said. When I first seen him, obviously my first reaction is, because the Americans might not be able to understand this, but when
No.
I first seen him, this was like Graham Norton being a side character in some kind of like, you know, Batman, or remember, just imagine that in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a Batman TV show and Graham Norton was one of the main characters. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
honestly, it was a bit strange to see, because it's nothing to do with him being gay, by the way. It's just because of the fact
No.
that he played. Well, remember, we know about the craze in this country, so we know that it's not necessarily just because someone's gay they're weak or anything like that. It's not. I'm saying nothing of the sort. Yeah. What I'm saying is it's just because he'd always played these sort of comedy, campy, obviously overly gay roles, and then
Yes.
next thing you know, he was playing this. And you know, I'll give John Barrowman credit. He was absolutely fantastic. And
He's a
remember,
brilliant
his
actor.
character was down to earth, straight male, because he was the dad of Thea, wasn't he, in
Yeah,
Arrow? Yeah.
that's
So
right.
it obviously, you know, he completely. It just shows that he is actually a fantastic actor without all the bravado and all the, you know, campy
Yeah.
highlighted. And make no mistake, like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. If that's
No,
where he feels,
no.
that's
But
where he feels comfortable in, that's where he feels comfortable in. But I have to make it clear that when I first seen him in that role, I was a bit like, wow, is he really playing the straight, serious like villain?
he was phenomenal. For those first couple of seasons, especially the first season of Arrow, he was just fantastic. And I remember me and my friend, we talked about this a few weeks ago. To me, his Malcolm Merlin was like the Norman Osborn of the show. He was just phenomenal, and he was very quiet and very sinister. But when he turned, he really turned evil, and it was just a blast to watch. And just to take lesser known villains, I mean, we talk about the heroes, but we never really talk about the villains much in the Arrowverse. You know, to take lesser known villains like, you know, a Dark Archer or a Ra's al Ghul, you know, guys
Another
who are not really that well known in the mainstream, and then just put them in live action on a TV format is just absolutely mind blowing. You know,
another major success that I feel that they had as well is that for the first couple of series, because they were so fresh, you didn't get that, what I always talk about, and I'm going to mention it anyway, the whose side is he on thing. You
no,
actually used to be, well, who's this guy going to be then? That was the way that it used to be when Arrow first came out. You literally stood there and you tell me you didn't spend half your time scrolling through Wikipedia and Google looking for, oh, wait, is this person's name anyone who's actually already in the DC universe? Or, you know, when
yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah,
if you don't just hear the standard names, you know, like of the characters. Like, I knew that obviously Roy was going to turn out to be. I thought he was going to turn out to be Speedy at first, obviously, but then they called him Arsenal at first, didn't they? In Arrow, yeah.
yes, that's
And
right.
I knew he was going to turn out to be someone. And obviously, I knew that Thea was also, her nickname was Speedy, and she was obviously a character called Speedy as well in the DC universe. So it was one of the successes I think they had, is they really had you hanging on with that. Every character or every person can be introduced. So it wasn't just the fact of we're getting new characters and that was great. It was beyond that. It was like oh my word, anyone could be anyone. We knew we weren't going to get the big time people, but anyone could have been anyone on the next level down. And when you started doing your research and realized how many characters were actually in the DC universe, it's actually quite eye-opening.
Another thing as well, I think the Arrowverse started for me really was when they introduced Barry Allen in season 2 of Arrow, who was played by Grant Gustin from Glee, of all places. And this for me was a very important moment because having Barry Allen, of course, everybody knows Barry Allen is the Flash. But I thought they did a very clever move in introducing Barry Allen before he became the Flash. I thought that was a very good thing they did there. So he was in there for 2 episodes, helping Oliver, Felicity, and Diggle out with a case. And then at the end of that 2-part episode that he appeared in, he goes back to Central City and he gets struck by lightning. And that sets up the pilot of The Flash season 1. And I thought that was really, really good. So you see him get struck by lightning at the end, and they just leave you that little tease and say, well, if you want to know what happened to Barry next, you're going to have to watch The Flash season 1, the pilot. I thought they really did a good job there.
I thought they did a great job there as well. And I also, knowing how everything turned out, it once again, it warms me to remember my thought of maybe they could end every series like this, where the next character will be introduced to the audience as in the next superhero. Because let's say they would have had a list of maybe 5 to 10 potential superheroes that could be added in. But I think that at some point they decided to start making teams rather than doing the, the next series would have been at the end of The Flash would have been Supergirl. The next series at the end of season 2 or season 3 of the Arrow would have been maybe a Firestorm series or something like that, that led to these different characters being introduced. I think that they just went with the teams and the super team, Team Arrow, Team Flash, and that rather than doing that. But I remember my first thought when I seen that we were leading to a Flash series. Now, of course, a lot of people would say, like the Flash, potentially the Flash and Aquaman should have both had. They didn't have any plans for an Aquaman TV series at that point, but both of them should have had real origin stories within the Arrow universe so that the fans of just the DC universe could get to see something on film or on television that actually showed the origin. Now, of course, they always had the films of the Flash and Arrow, Flash and Aquaman always in mind, but we never knew when we were actually going to get them. So it would have been nice to have seen those characters that they knew were leading up to the Justice League. I mean, obviously at that time they might not have known where they were going. So, but I did like what I've seen with the Flash. It was an excellent way of introducing Barry Allen pre-Flash and then turning him into the Flash and then introducing us as the audience. Right, this is going to be our second show and this is going to be the Flash. And there are going to be times when these shows actually link up where what you have to watch both episodes in 1 week rather than choosing to watch one.
Yeah. Another thing as well, I mean, I remember when they announced that they were going to do, a Flash spin-off show. I was really excited, being a big fan of the Flash, but also I was a bit skeptical. I thought, I remember the last time we did a Flash show, that was with John Wesley Shipp back in late 80s or early 90s, around that time. Early 90s, that's right. I remember now. It was early 90s. So I thought, well, this could be different because, this is the 2000s now, so maybe this could work. And I remember I thought, well, I'll watch the first episode of the pilots, see what I think. And I was immediately hooked from the word go. The first episode of Flash absolutely blew my mind. I thought, wow, this is exactly what I've been wanting to see for a really, really long time. If we're not going to get a Flash cinematic movie on the cinema, then I'm happy with a TV show. And boy, what a first season The Flash was. Absolutely fantastic from start to finish. And I don't think I can recall there was a duff episode. I think every episode was really good. Some were better than others, obviously, but
I feel like The Flash in its first series, especially with it being a character, once again, a second character that I had never had real knowledge of. I didn't watch Smallville to that. I didn't have real knowledge of the Green Arrow or Flash. And, with it being a second character that I had no knowledge of, I just felt straight away like I could invest into this. I mean, as either later today or later in a different episode of this, we will talk about the deep and meaningful parts of how the Flash affected Arrow, because let's be perfectly honest, it was a good thing at first, but with Flash running almost parallel to the Arrow, I think the Flash's success almost hindered everything that the Arrow had been building, because at that point you do hit a brick wall of you're now choosing to watch one over the other unless you have to watch one, or, you know, watch both of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the time you had two shows, Arrow and the Flash, and they always used to do like mini crossovers, didn't they?
The Flash needed training at first, didn't he? Obviously, Barry
Yeah.
needed training, and the best person for him to train him, obviously, in our timeline would have been, you know, people like Oliver who had skills. If you remember, Oliver kept shooting him with the arrows or whatever he did to train him with his speed and whatever else like that.
Yeah.
Little bits like that, and like I said, so that was great to see. And obviously, it's where we all knew at the time. Oh my word! We're getting some kind of Justice League or some kind of Justice Society of America with these characters, and they're all going to team up together. And that's what you wanted at the time. Everyone desperately wanted that.
Well, that's where you kind of thought that's the natural thing. You'd expect that to go that direction, but they kind of put off that for a while, because we only had like Flash and Arrow crossing over into each other's shows. As I said, you know, Flash would go to Central City, work with Diggle and Felicity and Roy for a few episodes, and then sometimes Oliver would jump to Central City, and you know, everyone would just go back and forth in each other's cities, Starling City to Central City and back and forth, and it was good. It was really good. It worked.
It had a real sweet effect at first, and they even had little bits, didn't they, where say Oliver needed something, so he'd ring, rather than ringing Barry, he'd talk to Cisco, or there was little things like that where they just keep everybody so that you knew everybody's on the same side here. Just in case you don't watch The Flash, you need to know these characters are on the same side as Oliver, because we are leading up to something, which of course was I don't think it was called Crisis on Infinite Earths. I think it was just called the first crossover, wasn't it? It was just when they did the first crossover with Supergirl, Arrow, Flash, and I think it was it Legends of Tomorrow?
Well, that was the first. That was called Invasion. That was like the first major ensemble crossover. But the first crossover that actually did, I believe, was called Flash versus Arrow. But I know Flash appeared in one episode of Arrow, but I think it wasn't credited as like a major crossover event. It was just like Barry Allen's just making a guest appearance. But I think it was Flash versus Arrow was the first one. But they introduced all like the legends in the Flash, and they introduced them in Arrow as well. You know, like Ray Palmer, who was played by Superman himself, Brandon Routh. You know, he got a second chance.
That's another thing that was a success, I think, as well, was bringing back the actors that had previously played some of the DC Universe's characters in the past. Like, let's not forget that in the first series of Supergirl, Dean Cain and
Helen Slater
are the mum and dad, and are they not Supergirl and Superman from the Supergirl film, and from the Superman and Lois, the new adventures of Superman and Lois?
Yeah,
that's what it was called, wasn't it?
Lois and Clark. Yeah.
Was that what that was? No, it was Lois and Clark, the new Adventures of Superman. That's what that was called,
right.
Wasn't it?
That's right. It was originally called the New Adventures of Superman. Then it became more about Lois and Clark. Then it became Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman.
I mean, I haven't got the form in front of me, but I know that there is a page on Google. And feel free, if any of you guys want to be handy and helpful and you want to write these down in the comment section below. But I'd be curious to see an updated list of all of the actors that have actually been in any old DC and any newer DC. I mean, this is not completely just DC, is it? Because Marvel have done this with some of their...
Yeah, Marvel have done this to a point as well.
They've done it in their actual MCU, haven't they? They've done it in their actual MCU. And then that's where DC have done it in their MCU as well. Or
I think DC have done it more than Marvel. Marvel have done it a couple of times, but DC have become more known for that. I mean, you had, like you said, you had Helen Slater, who played Supergirl, Dean Cain, who played Superman. You also had
John Wesley Shipp. He came back.
John Wesley Shipp, who played the Flash. That's right. Ezra Miller made a little cameo at one point, much later down the line, of course, much later.
Keaton has been in one of the series, hasn't he, as Batman? Or did
Who's
that
that?
get cut from something? What did that get cut from? I
Which
seen
one?
Michael Keaton's Batman in one of the. I seen a cut scene with Michael Keaton.
He had
As,
a photo. He wasn't actually in one episode. He wasn't in an episode. They used his photograph from the first
oh,
two Batman movies.
okay, yeah, but that still counts as like that's the guy who Batman is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's be honest, he would still got paid for that. There's no way they could have just used that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Of course, got to use.
To use his likeness and stuff like that and all that. It would have been his. Remember with all the controversy with the George Clooney Batman, they made it clear, didn't they? George Clooney's Batman isn't the same Batman, technically as the Batman that Michael Keaton was. Because they had separate contracts. They might be the same Batman on the screen because they're both Batman, yeah, but it's not. It's something different, isn't it? We all know Christian Bale's Batman wasn't the same Batman as what's his name, George Clooney's.
Another thing as well of the success of the Arrowverse, as you mentioned, Supergirl, we also got Legends of Tomorrow. Now, a lot of the characters from Legends of Tomorrow were all people who appeared in The Flash and Arrow, like Ray Palmer, and villains like Captain Cold and Heatwave and White Canary. All these characters who all appeared in different episodes of The Flash and Arrow. For me, this was like a mixture of the Justice League meets the Legion of Superheroes. It's almost like their way of saying, well, you're not going to get the Justice League, but you're not going to get the Legion of Superheroes. But what we're going to give you is we're going to give you like a little hybrid. So you're going to get the best of both, but we're going to just like stick all these guys together and see what happens.
What I will say is I think that when the Legends came in, and I know that. And anyone listening at this point, I want you to understand that we will be jumping from one part to another part. There's no format of. We're just talking about the successes. One of the successes obviously led to Legends of Tomorrow becoming a thing because they wanted to consolidate a lot of these characters. And let's not forget that we're not mentioning people who were known. Wentworth Miller and the other guy from Prison Break. They were massive actors. Yeah, they'd been. They had been two of the most well-known TV actors on TV at that point. There were a few people that got into the DC universe as characters, but yeah, they wanted to bring through like an ensemble of characters. I feel like they missed a chance here, though. I feel like because they were so desperate to have Wentworth Miller and they'd already cast him as Captain Cold and all that with the Sarah Lance character, Katie Lotz or whatever her name is. Yeah, she's Black Canary, isn't she?
Yeah, she was Black Canary originally. Then she became White Canary later on.
Who's is that? That's Sarah Lance, isn't it? Katie Lotz.
Yeah.
Or is that Laurel? What's Laurel?
Laurel was played by Katie Cassidy, the daughter of
because they were both
Cassidy.
Because they're both called Katie in real life, aren't they? Yeah, and it was a bit. I swear it was a bit weird, but yeah, Katie Lotz. She was in Bring It On. She was a cheerleader in Bring It On, by the way, in case anyone don't know that. But yeah, I feel like they were so desperate to get her character into one of the series so they could bring her back into Arrow at one point. I feel like they made it with her, and I feel like Legends of Tomorrow, looking back, hindsight, as much as it was in the successful period of the show and of the Arrowverse, I feel like that should have been the Justice League of America, or the Justice Society of America, sorry. It should have been that group of people rather than Legends of Tomorrow.
The thing with Legends of Tomorrow, initially when it started, I mean, it wasn't the big success like The Flash or Arrow, but it did. The first couple of seasons, I'll probably say the first 3 seasons, were really good. They were really, really good. I still go on record to say.
Kept them short as well. If I'm not wrong, the first 2 series were only like 7 and like 10 episodes, weren't they? They were very short.
Yeah, they were only like 10 episodes, but I thought season 2, still to this day, is the best season Legends of Tomorrow ever did.
I think season 1 was only like 7 episodes, honestly, bro. It was like a special. It was like a special that came on between Christmas. Like when they used to do the hiatus between Christmas and March, and then they'd come back on. The shows would come back on in March. They did 7 weeks, spaced over, I want to say, about a 12-week period. And then that covered between January and March, and then The Flash and Arrow came back on.
I think Legends of Tomorrow season 1 had 16 episodes.
Was it 16?
Yeah, 16. And season 2 had 17. And
maybe I just wasn't watching the series then.
Number 3 had the longest one they had was season 3 was like 18 episodes, and then after that, after about season 3, when you get to like 4 to
I
7,
must be thinking of something else there because I'm not even joking. That's almost even made me not like Legends of Tomorrow even more now because I swear I have always used the defense of, well, season 1 was only like 7 episodes, so it wasn't too bad.
no,
Yeah.
no,
Wow,
around about
16
season
episodes,
4,
season 1.
around about season 4, the numbers start to drop. So whereas like season 3 had 18 and season 2 had 17 and season 1 had 16, you start to see the numbers of episodes start to drop. So not season 4 had like 16.
Yeah,
Season
apologies to all the people that listened through me talking that utter nonsense about it only being 7 episodes a minute ago. I should have done my research, but yeah, that's kind of
yeah,
that
you
actually
start to
has
see
kind
it
of.
starts to drop. The numbers
Well,
start
if you
to
look at
drop.
the ratings as well, the ratings really, really started to drop, didn't they? Like in
Yeah,
the
around
first
about
series and
4.
second series, they held their audience about 2.5, 3. They managed to keep above a 2, but by the 4th series, you could just tell that the
Yeah.
audience. But I think that also coincides with the audience that had started to just leave. Something had offended them within the Arrowverse, and they just said, "Right, enough's enough." Like I did. It was about
I think
2018 when
with
I said, and
Legends, obviously, there were other shows we are going to get into because it's not just doesn't stop there with Legends. Well, obviously, we'll get into the other stuff a bit later on. The next show, and this is where things slowly start to go off the cliff here. The next show that came in line with the Arrowverse was Batwoman. Now, Batwoman made her Arrowverse debut in the Elseworlds crossover, played by Ruby Rose, and she was an instant hit in Elseworlds
sure
crossover.
it wasn't Black Lightning that came next.
No, that came after.
Feel like I was watching. I must have just not watched.
I think no, that Black Lightning came after, and I remember when Batwoman appeared, and she only appeared in like one. I think it was part 2, when Barry and Oliver and the others they went to Arkham Asylum to try and look for Doctor Destiny.
Yeah,
They're looking for, and Batwoman's was that appearance alone, went down very well with the fans, and the CW's decided, you know what, we're not going to give you, we can't give you a Batman show, but we can give you a Batwoman show. And I remember thinking, well, this is
well,
interesting. My friend was
weren't they
very
also
excited
some
about it.
animated series that were part of the Arrowverse, or we're just not talking about them? Because I never seen them, but I'm just saying I remember
Um,
them
there was
advertising
an
them.
animated tie-in movie called Vixen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that was a series. That was a web series.
That was
Vixen
a
was a
web
web.
series. Then they released it on DVD and made it into like a little mini animated movie because there was a line that Green
Yeah,
Arrow says.
that might actually be on YouTube right now, guys. So if I believe during the unspeakable time when we all had to stay at home, I'm sure that that was uploaded to one of the streaming one of the
Yeah, that
channels on YouTube.
Vixen
That
came about round about. I'm going to guess round about season 3 or 4 because I remember there was a line Oliver says to Vixen or the others. Said, "Oh, last time me and Vixen met, we things got a little bit animated."
Hmm.
Batwoman. I remember when Batwoman came out, my friend was really excited because having read all the comics, so finally we're going to get a Batwoman series. And I thought, well, I don't know too much about Batwoman. I mean, I know from the DCAU and the old comics of the 50s and 60s. Obviously, I know a little bit about the modern one, but I thought this could be interesting. Yeah, I don't know.
I have never, and I'm gonna say this is where 2018, I think, like many people, and if I'm not wrong, I think that the other critics online, a lot of them say around about 2018 is where they just, like myself, said, I'm either watching just the one that I like, or I'm not watching any of this anymore. I don't know. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something to do with between the Flash and Arrow of when it was doing all that love stuff with Felicity and
Yeah,
Barry and what's the name, Iris. I just got bored. I just got really bored because rather than it being one episode that was a bit dull, another episode that was really good, it would be one episode that was terrible, another episode that was awful, and then another episode that was just barely watchable. And by the time that it got midway through whatever season it was with the Flash, I just said I can't watch. I mean, to be honest, I actually carried on watching The Flash longer than I watched Arrow, because I feel like between season 2 and 3 of The Flash had become better than Arrow. But
Yes,
it
at
was
one point
it was a situation where that was where I started heavily screaming for, you know, some kind of, can we just get a weekly hero of the week thing where we just get a 1 hour episode, or maybe like a film version where it features a team up or whatever, but just one episode a week rather than having Monday. Because remember, at one stage, the DC universe was on every single day.
At one point, yeah. At one point, you had.
It was on every single day of the week.
I remember at that point you had Supergirl was on Sunday, Arrow was on Monday, Tuesday was Batwoman.
The Flash was on Tuesday.
Oh, Flash was on Tuesday, Batwoman was on Wednesday, and Legends of Tomorrow was on Thursday. So yeah, that's a lot of DC. That's nearly five. That's nearly like 5 days a week of DC content. That's a lot. Now, this is where things, just to touch upon what you said, this is where the Arrowverse starts to, well, fail, yes, but this is where the cracks start to show.
Matt Ryan also reprised his role as Constantine in between all this as well. So
Love
didn't
that.
get a Constantine series, but he's still featured in, I think he was in Arrow, I think he was in...
He did get one series. It got cancelled after one season, which is quite shocking.
Wasn't his series aired before all of this?
I believe it was somewhere, because there was no other shows at the time. I believe it was during Arrow. He had his own show. They cancelled it after one season, even though it was a big success.
They made it nothing to do with. Not at first, his character was nothing to do with the Arrowverse, was he? Like his series had nothing.
No, it was completely different, separate from that, and it was very successful. But
it's on NBC as well, so yeah, that probably explains why.
You know, as I said, it was very, very successful, but still to this day, they've not renewed it for a second season. Even though fans have been screaming for a second season, they've not done that. Now, obviously, we've touched upon the success of the Arrowverse. Now, the failures and the cracks start to show, as you mentioned, where they start to focus on the love interests as well. Obviously, we'll touch upon Black Lightning in a moment, but I feel the turning point with the whole romance thing is when Batwoman was introduced. Now, for those of you who know the Kate Kane character, Kate Kane is a lesbian, and nothing wrong with that. I thought, okay, it's fair enough. That's what the character's about. But I felt with season 1 of Batwoman, although I enjoyed some episodes, I felt they pushed it far too hard. They really pushed it far too hard, to the point where every scene they just get a hammer and just bash it over your head. Goes, I'm a lesbian, bang. I'm a lesbian, bang. It's just like, oh, I want to see Batwoman doing her thing. I don't really want to hear or see this. You know, and I've got nothing against things like that. Just, it's not really what, as a DC fan, that's not really what you're here to see, is it?
No, it's definitely not what I'm here to see. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest, and I'll say this. It's around that time there where I think that they screwed up before. They realized that then, like, you know, as happens once again in the world of professional wrestling, I feel like they look back and they thought, we had a chance to bring this whole universe together and, you know, just have the Arrowverse. And, you know, we imagine the audience, you don't know what you're going to get to see. They just film 120 episodes with all of these characters of different things going off, all the villains over a period of time. And then come Monday, you just get given an episode, Superhero and Friends or whatever, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I feel like they had an option to just consolidate all of these characters into one big Superhero and Friends series, but they were so hell-bent on introducing new characters without actually finishing off the storyline arcs of the other characters that in a 3-year period had gone from, like the Arrow, for instance, gone from one of the most dangerous people that were alive in the first and second series to in the third and fourth series, he was a guy running for mayor and all this. A lot of it contradicted what the actual original series was about. Even though we knew they took elements of the actual real story, I'm talking about the story that they told us. Oh, yes. We have to save this city. Did he ever actually save the city?
No.
You know what I mean? I have to ask those questions. You know what I mean? Like, I need to save this city, or is so right, you went away for 5 years and it turned out you wasn't actually away for 5 years, so you lied to us. There was so much that, like, you honestly could go back and watch Arrow 10 times through the first 4 series and you will still not be able to understand, well, what's the whole story then? The origin story should have been its own separate, like, 5-episode arc in the series. But I feel like they were so scared, and this is where the success comes in. People were so blinded. But, and you know, and I know, watching back and watching the Arrow series, no one really gave two F's about the actual storyline of Oliver Queen. It was the 2 to 3 minutes and 6 minutes per episodes of those flashbacks. You were desperate to see them back then, and it kept you absolutely gripped.
Yeah, they were the highlights. They were the highlights of the show.
That's where the success of the show was, but at the same time, that became old and tried and tested way too quickly. And then I feel like what we should have got is a 5 or 6 episode just completion of the background story and then move on. But they started to water it down and convolute it, and then he was on a different island and he was on a different place. And even if you listen to the intro, it's contradictive. I spent 5 years trapped on an island. No, you didn't. You spent like 2 years trapped on the island. Then you escaped the island. Then you went elsewhere. Then you went back to the island. Then escaped the island again. And then you went back
to a different one after.
Different island. Then went back to the island after, and then built it into like a prison sort of thing.
Oh, for Slade Wilson.
I mean, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you mean. It's just like they just kind of like went all over the place with their stories, and also another thing as well, which is where the failures start to come in. They pushed far too hard with the love interest stuff. Now, obviously, anybody who reads comic books know that Iris West is an important part of the Flash. She is his Lois Lane. We all know that, but I felt roundabout, I'm going to say maybe season 4. Yeah, I don't know what it is about season 4 with the Arrowverse. It seems to me.
I know, and I'm going to say this right now, and I'm sorry to cut you off like that, but I know why. Because this is the same idiots that we've spoke about, that are the Warner Brothers executives that didn't seem to understand Batman doesn't need to have a love interest. He just needs to be himself. In fact, 95% of the time when he has got a love interest, it's probably going to be someone like Catwoman, who is going to be the woman that he's got to stop or whatever. And it's a bit of a, anti sort of, I want to stop you, but I still love you. And, that kind of vibe there, yeah? You can accept that. But when they're trying to force Vicky Vale and all the... Wait, hold on a minute. Aren't these supposed to be playboys?
Yeah, no.
Like, what is this thing about turning these... And Marvel's done this as well. What is this thing about turning these billionaire playboys into these guys that are immediately paired with women and girls? And it seems to me like the only explanation is because the comic books were desperate to sell comic books to girls as well as boys.
Yeah.
So look, Batman, you could be Batman's wife and stuff like that. And also you can be, you know what I mean? Like, honestly, no. It's clear and obvious. These DC Universe characters, males that have got clear psychological issues, half of them are hiding behind masks, half of them have been struck by lightning, left in bowls of radiation or whatever they are. They should not be in relationships. They clearly have separation and anxiety issues. They clearly have attachment issues. Half of them have got split personalities. So why would any woman want to be with them anyway? And look at the women that they're falling in love with. I know it's entertaining on paper, but this is where wrestling and comic books really meet in the middle. It's almost like you just get this, oh, well, she's a good girl and he's a good guy. So let's have this married woman who we all know behind the scenes is married with this married man behind the scenes, the whole Lana and Lashley thing. And it just looks stupid on television. Like, stop forcing these characters down our throats. We know Barry and Iris are going to end up together in the end, but can we get like 6 series of no Iris, and then finally he meets up with Iris down the line when he's about to, like the series is winding down. He meets up with Iris again, finally gets her out of the timeline or out of the Speed Force or whatever, and rescues her from the Speed Force, and then they have a reunition in the last episode of the series. Yeah. You know what I mean? Honestly, or, with the Felicity and Oliver thing, and I'm sorry that I'm ranting, guys, but with the Felicity and Oliver thing, can we just get from season 3 or 4 onwards? Because let's be fair, he went from being a guy that was cheating on his girlfriend with her sister, and her sister apparently died on a boat accident. And then he came back and he wouldn't be forgiven, and then he started doing things to help her out. But then all of a sudden he's fallen in love with this tech girl. It was like, what's happening here, so that we can turn her into a character that's not even from this series? You know what I mean? A character that's not even from this actual arc. We're going to turn her into a Barbara Gordon. Honestly,
yeah, pretty much.
Go down all that. And you can probably tell by the way we're on the borderline of when this whole verse started to go downhill. And like I said, I hope that this can be more than just one time of talking about this. I hope this goes into a bit of an episodic thing, because I've got so much more to say. But that was the time when I truly believe when it became unwatchable.
Well, I mean, it seems to be a trend. I mean, with the Arrowverse shows, that you have the first 3 seasons, they do pretty well, they're very strong, and then they just all go off the cliff around season 4. I think the only season, and I did a separate video about this a few years back, that broke the Arrowverse season 4 curse was Supergirl. And I thought Supergirl, still to this day, produced perhaps their best season they ever did, and that was season 4. But apart from Supergirl, none of the other shows have really come through a good 4th season. It's almost like, well, we used all our best stuff for the first 3 seasons. Now we're just going to like go through the motions and coast along, because we've already achieved the success. You know, we've already done what we wanted. Now we're the most watched program, so it doesn't really matter, because we're still getting the big numbers. But that's where I think it starts to go downhill for a lot of these shows, is around season 4.
Lazy booking, sorry about that, lazy booking and over-scripted nonsense.
So again, this is where the cracks in the Arrowverse start to show, and the failures start to really creep in. As we've mentioned before, that they started to push more the love interests over the hero. And like you said before earlier, that these guys, they're not supposed to be, you know, all having girlfriends and all that, because, you know, they've got issues, split personalities, hit by radiation or struck by lightning, you know, anything else you can think of. And, you know, one of the issues I have with a lot of the Arrowverse shows is that they tended to push the girlfriend over the guy, and to the point where the guy, the hero that is, he's more or less relegated to background status. Like he's there, it's his show, but
it wasn't just that though. It was worse. And it's not a sexist thing. It became overly like feminist, like as in like, right, all these superheroes need women that are not superheroes to help them, but at the same time, then we're going to give more females roles as superheroes, as in characters that have got powers. You know, they had Killer Frost, and I'm not being rude, but this really annoyed me, and I have to say this. They had Killer Frost, one of the most powerful female characters in the DC universe, struggling and not ever being able to truly use her powers, when there'd been no sign of this split personality, insecurity, I don't know how to control Frost. So it was nice to see that they added the split personality with Caitlin, and then obviously with the issues that she had with Firestorm. But that was one of the weirdest creations that I think that you could ever see. But I feel like the whole series, the only couple that ever truly made sense to me, and this is weird, was Firestorm and Killer Frost. Because they obviously would have realized we can't be together because of what we are, yeah?
Yes.
So it was very strange. Like, they could have focused on that and just kept all of the other people as they were supposed to be. And then later in the series, we got introduced to Iris, or something happened to Iris. But I feel like they cast Iris with such a strong female actress that they knew straight away. And that's another problem. So they cast these strong female actresses in roles and then expect them to just be in the program as background characters, knowing that people are going to start to see what they can do. And then all of a sudden, these characters like, is it Giselle, or I can't remember what her name is, Iris's dad's wife, when she comes in it, the one that consents.
Oh, Cecile.
Things. Yeah, Cecile, yeah. Characters like that, they then become the vocal point of the series. All of a sudden, you tune out for 5 episodes, and then they're the main character, and it's like, what's happened here? Yeah. This don't seem right. You know what I mean? And a lot of it's not just the love interest. everyone seemed to have got a love interest. And then on top of that, they then started bringing in these young, late teens, early 20s, very good looking women that everybody would like, oh, she's hot. And then they also have to then have love interest and be some kind of alternative. I mean, how many women tried it with Oliver over his time when he was clearly with Felicity and all? Do you know where I'm coming from? I understand that these trials and tribulations happen, but we needed less Smallville and we needed more first couple series of Arrow and The Flash.
Well, the whole thing with the girlfriend being pushed to the spotlight really started with Arrow, where Felicity started taking more charge, and she was basically giving all the guys the orders, and things like that didn't bother me as much. But then when I started to see that trend in The Flash as well, then it started to bother me. It's like, right, I get that these girls are the girlfriends. They do play an important part for these heroes. But last time I checked, this is supposed to be Arrow's show. Last time I checked, this was the Flash's show, not the Smoke series or the Iris West series.
They let Felicity become a well-known character from the Batman series.
Oracle.
Like, you have to understand, they actually gave her the Oracle's story just so that Oliver had the same drive in this world as what Batman did. That is nonsense to me. They could have done this in a million ways to get Oliver and Felicity to be that couple, but to actually give Felicity the Oracle that moniker and name and stuff, it was, for me, and I'm gonna say this, and to steal a phrase from a very controversial wrestling podcaster and former wrestling manager and personnel, Jim Cornette, lazy booking. That's all that came across as to me. Was you couldn't think of a decent story out of all these love stories that you're conjuring up out of thin air in the Arrowverse anyway. And I know that it sounds overly negative compared to the first part of this, but this is how this is going to work, because we are now delving into the era where I started to say, right, I can't watch this no more. I don't like it. There's not enough entertainment. Bring back can we get, they even did do that eventually. They brought back Deathstroke, didn't they? Like, can we get some episodes with more Deathstroke and some of the more dangerous characters? We barely got to see Deadshot in this, like, honestly. And then they turned him into a like good guy, didn't they? They turned him into a guy that was helping. And then we had which another annoying thing that I think by the time we started getting the Suicide Squad stuff in Arrow, where we were seeing Amanda Waller doing all that stuff, it's like, well, why could we have not got some of the other characters then?
That's true.
Why could have Arrow not have taken on King Shark? You've given half of the Batman universe and this to other people, so why can't we give half the Wonder Woman and Batman universe on television to Arrow anyway? I feel like they went one step forward and slowly kept taking steps forward, where it surprised everyone in the first, say, year or 2 years. And then by the time they got so far ahead where they thought they were too far ahead to be caught, they started taking one step forward and like 4 or 5 steps backwards. And it really, really, really has cost them over the last, between, say, 2017 and 2020, I feel like they actually fully killed whatever it was that their universe was previously.
Well, this sort of trend continued in Batwoman as well, which is something which I think Batwoman played a big part in the failure in the Arrowverse, was because you essentially have a character who is a lesbian. Everybody knows that in the comic books, but I felt that with Batwoman, they were pushing that far too hard, and to the points where they were just shoving it down your throat. And I feel the only person who was carrying any form of interest for the show was Alice, played superbly by Rachel Scarsden. She was absolutely phenomenal. There's something wrong with a show when the villain is much more interesting than the hero. You say? Yes,
I would say that. I mean, once again, stealing something from wrestling, I feel like that's always got to be part where you do actually put the the hero into a vulnerable state. I feel like a lot of the problem was in the successful period. Like Oliver seemed completely untouchable at stages. Like he couldn't be outthought. He would always, there was, and you can't deny this, towards the middle of season 2 and towards the end of season 2, there were a few moments, even with the Arrow, where you did get that, oh look, it's over there, look, like that type of situation, which can be quite convenient, but we know that it's still based on a comic book, and I think that helps sometimes, where it's like you don't want too many moments where you say, oh yeah, you have to remind yourself, remember, this is still a comic book, yeah, or comic book series. You don't want too many of their moments, but you got them in with Arrow. But I feel like, you know, going back to your point from before about like Batwoman and that, yeah, like I just feel like that was just too, you know, a Deathstroke series would have been absolutely perfect. And I know for those that are new here, you're going to hear me say a lot of the time over any other episode or any other DC based video, what me and Warhawk do, you are going to hear me say, I just cannot understand how Deathstroke, with Manu Bennett as the lead role, was never given. I'm sure they must have considered it, but I can't understand how they did not give him a series on his own.
Well, I mean, you know, as I said, that with Batwoman, that, you know, the villain was more interesting than the hero, because they just, you know, they just bashed the lesbian thing over your head every 5 seconds.
Yeah, because I said this off thingy, the over emphasis that she was a lesbian, it did get nauseous. Nobody's got anything against this. If you're watching and you know that she's a lesbian, then you clearly haven't got anything against this. I'm not sure how many people were watching Batwoman on the edge of, right, well, if they don't mention that she's a lesbian, I'm not going to watch. I don't know how many people were actually watching it for that. But yeah, I totally agree. It was too much, wasn't it? It was far too much. Like, you're not supposed to fancy her, because it's like, well, what, you know what I mean? Don't look at her the same way that you'd look at, say, you know, one of the other women from the Arrowverse. Look at this woman, like she's different. And it's like, no, she's pretty much the same. They've all got courage. They all know what they're doing. You know, we've got investment in most of them. Let's not start disrespecting the other women because they're straight. You know, that kind of thing. Like, it actually became a little bit. It did become a little bit disrespectful towards people that might not be that same way. But in the opposite way around, they tried so hard to protect what her character was and the sexuality of her character that I think it started to become a little bit offensive towards the characters that weren't like that.
I felt that once Ruby Rose walked away and Javicia Leslie was cast in the role of Batwoman, that they did tone it down a lot. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't completely perfect, but it wasn't bashed over your head every 5 seconds like it was in season 1. I felt that it calmed down a lot, but I think in the public's eyes, the damage was more or less done, really, and there was no going back. And another show that was introduced, which took me by surprise, was Black Lightning. Now, Black Lightning was a character who'd mainly been in the comics. He was in Super Friends, and he had a little cameo in the DCAU, but he hadn't really been in live action at all. So this was quite a surprise. And what was your thoughts on Black Lightning in the Arrowverse? I mean, what did you feel he brought to the table, if anything?
Do you feel that he brought something to the dance? And I feel like Black Lightning was a way of really resetting and potentially building the series. And I think they may have actually tried to do this with series 1, but they did too much of their specialty of, you know, giving us a little bit and then not giving us it all, and then when by the time it's revealed of what it is at the end, or the higher power or whatever, it just turns out to be a bit anticlimactic.
Well,
I feel like Black Lightning could have been the reset where they started to build a new universe around this guy and then focused on him. No more Flash for the next year or two, no more thingy, and just focus on Supergirl, Black Lightning, and Batwoman. But I feel like they were so scared to keep the ratings where they were that they would not go down that road.
Well, I feel Black Lightning season 1 was really good. It was a surprise hit. It did very well. And I thought that, you know, this is a guy, you know, this is something new. This is a guy we don't really know a lot about. And he could bring something to the table, because they kept stressing that just because he's being shown on CW, he's not part of the Arrowverse, even though they made references to Supergirl and a few other heroes. And it was quite clear to me that, at some point, Black Lightning's going to team up with the Flash. He's going to team up with Green Arrow or something. But when you get to season 2 of Black Lightning, it was good, but I didn't think it was as good as season 1, to be honest. It's almost like they weren't really sure what to do because, Black Lightning doesn't really have a strong rogues gallery. He's got Tobias Whale, and then after that, you ain't really got much else. So they just kept like recycling the same storylines, but just switch them around with different characters. But I thought Black Lightning first season was good. I thought season 2 was all right. Didn't think it was as good as season 1. Season 3 was not that great.
Black Lightning season 1 was a good series, and I want to say that being a person of color as well, you hear these things that, this one's for us and all that kind of one. Yeah. A lot of people, especially African Americans online on Twitter, I've seen at the time, were like, Black Lightning, this is our one. And I feel like because of Batgirl, and then that led into the Black Lightning, it was like, right, are they just catering to, like the Power Rangers tried to do in the original series? Like, are we getting a blatant, quite patronizing version of them basically trying to cater to all types of crowds and backgrounds and stuff? Because we've got a female who is clearly a lesbian, and now we've got a fully African-American star. Are we just clutching at straws to find characters that can then be liked by all different types of people in the background, rather than maybe these characters should have been part of the team up of Legends of Tomorrow or Justice League? So you had an audience that would watch because Black Lightning's in that, but they don't necessarily watch because maybe Black Lightning might not be able to stand up on his own as a series. Because I feel like once they got past halfway through series 2, they didn't know what they were doing with Black Lightning.
No, they didn't really. And this is again where the cracks start to show, and the failure in the Arrowverse starts to become more and more, very apparent to the public. But then as you go forward, a lot of people reckon the failure of the Arrowverse came with Crisis on Infinite Earths, the 5-part crossover. A lot of people said that after Arrow ended, the Arrowverse was never the same. And would you say that's true, that since Arrow ended, that it's not been the same?
I'd say Arrow, especially, it makes it, in 10 years' time, people are going to look back and say, how are these people confused that the Arrow ending was the end of the Arrowverse? Surely the Arrowverse should have been dead when Arrow ended anyway. It's like, but yeah, all these characters were produced in this universe. And to end the main series, and, looking back, maybe the name the Arrowverse was a bit of a stupid name to have used in the first place anyway, but that's because it was the first one that really came to us. But, you are right. Once they ended the Arrow in the Arrowverse, it left us with this thing of, well, is there any more Arrow? I think if they'd have just kept Oliver as a character within the series and just had him, Stephen Amell, reprise his role maybe 3 times in The Flash, 3 times in Supergirl, once in Black Lightning, and then maybe once in Batgirl, just to see where he was, I feel like it would have been better. But I feel like once you got that crossovers that, like you say, were bad, not great, and they were received quite badly by the audience, I feel like once you got to that stage there, you were really playing with fire when it came to getting rid of any of those main, Oliver Queen, Barry Allen characters from the universe. But I feel like they just didn't have anywhere to go. You could clearly see during the later series of Arrow, they just did not know what to do with the guy. Through all that Ra's al Ghul stuff, that could have gone on a lot longer than it did go on. I feel like they rushed through a lot of that in series 3 and 4 or whatever it was. And I feel like we could have got a lot more from that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that once they killed off Oliver Queen, once they ended Arrow, there was nothing to really, there was nothing really to get excited about anymore. So when you have the crossovers, right, Arrow's coming in, Supergirl's coming in, The Flash, all these guys, all these shows all coming together. But now Arrow's ended, what do you really have? And I think
it would have been better off just doing 2, like, 2.5 hour movies one week and then the next week with all the characters involved, rather than doing where you had to watch almost a full episode of some of the random series like Supergirl and Arrow or Flash, and then at the last 15 minutes you got the jump into whatever the Elseworlds and the Crisis on Infinite Earths, and then you get 2 or 3 episodes of that. I feel like it just ended up where you could clearly see that some characters weren't going to be used properly, some characters are going to be overused. You didn't know what was happening. They clearly didn't know what was happening. So how the hell was we supposed to know what was happening?
Well, I mean, I think with Arrow ending, and this is again going back to the failures of the Arrowverse, I think the effect of Arrow ending has affected all of the other shows quite badly, because I feel when Arrow was on the air, it helped the other shows step up. So they was all like pushing each other. I mean, again, going back to the wrestling thing, you got WCW Nitro and WWF Raw all trying to push each other to see, right, we got Hulk Hogan to turn heel, top that. I said, well, we've made Shawn Michaels world champion. See, we're better than you. We shock the world. Shawn Michaels champion, so what? I know it's an example, but that's how, you know, you look at it with these Arrowverse shows. It's like, without Arrow, you haven't really got that show to push the other shows to be better. And I think,
100% right.
And I think the shows have suffered for it. And I think the shows that have suffered the most out of it are The Flash and Legends of Tomorrow. I probably would say more Legends of Tomorrow, because Legends of Tomorrow is not the Legends of Tomorrow we remember from the first 3 seasons, where it was about protecting history and time traveling. It's just become comedy.
Being good or being bad, you were just there to do a job. It was like a mercenary job. But then over the series, I feel like they turned it into, you know, like it said the Legends of Tomorrow, nothing to do with the legends like or superheroes. I feel like they've turned that into Legend of Superheroes. Like it's just a bunch of random, like they really went deep eventually with Legends of Tomorrow. Like, I have actually enjoyed some of the last few series of Legends of Tomorrow. This is without being overly negative towards it, but I feel like if you were to watch season 1 of Legends of Tomorrow, then watch the recent series of Legends of Tomorrow, you would not have a clue who half of those characters are.
No. And I feel that with Legends, I feel that once they killed off Stein and Jefferson left and Snart left, after that, the show started to really, really show cracks. And the more you lost the originals, the more the show just became a parody of itself. Until eventually you just had Sarah Lance left. And it just, as you say, that apart from Sarah Lance, do you even know who half of these guys are?
I feel like Sarah will maybe look back on her time and say that they could have done a lot more with, do you know what I mean? With him, with her and with Arrow and with Flash, involving her and Oliver's like situation. I feel like looking back on her, you wouldn't even recognize the character that she came into the Arrowverse as.
No.
Retcon the whole of her character by turning her as well into a, you know, out proud lesbian, irregardless of the fact that when she was a teenage girl, she was cheating, she was sleeping with her sister's boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
She should never have been a hero character. She should have always been the type of Venom character. Turns up, does good, but also does, you know, like I said before, does bad for good things, does good for bad things. I feel like when they missed that boat with certain characters in the Arrowverse, but then they tried to do that with guys like Deathstroke, which made 0 sense to me.
That's true. No, you're right. And also around this time as well, you know, a lot of the shows started getting cancelled. You know, you had Batwoman get cancelled after season 3, which kind of surprised me a little bit, because I felt that with season 3 of Batwoman, they finally like worked out the kinks and the bugs. It's almost like, well, Ruby Rose is gone now. Season 2, it was a bit clunky, but there was still some good episodes. But again, Rachel Scarsden was still carrying the show as Alice. But I felt by season 3, they kind of like cleaned out the spectre of Ruby Rose and said, you know what, we're not going to do all that lesbian stuff. That stuff is still there, but it's not going to be as potent as it was in like season one. We're just going to concentrate on telling Batwoman stories. And I think it worked. And I thought to myself that, yeah, this season hasn't been perfect, but it's been better. I'm looking forward to season 4. And they cancelled it.
I feel like one of the biggest problems with Warner Brothers, whether it is, and I'm saying Warner Brothers instead of DC, is because at the heart of everything that is DC, it's Warner Brothers.
Absolutely.
You have to remember that there is this familiar pattern over the last 35 years that has been developing with these programs, or maybe even 40 years now. It's this, how do we subtly focus on this being a female, like almost like these guys that have been the executive, and I'm sorry if this offends anyone, but it's almost like these guys that have been the executives of some of these comic book franchises, but they're not the people who actually made the comic book people. You know, like they're not Stan Lee and they're not Josh Kirby or those people there. Jack Kirby, is it Jack Kirby, Josh Kirby, whatever it is? Yeah,
Jack Kirby.
They're not those people. These are the people that just own the rights and the publishing and all this because they've become fortunate with enough. Their pockets are deep enough to have become fortunate over the years, and they took risks on things. And credit to them for taking risks on certain franchises, because those franchises would have been dead, and we would have never got this comic book that universes in both Marvel and the DC universe. Fair enough. But I feel like we're being punished now again, because at every heart of every meeting must be this one guy that's like, never been with a woman, never experienced what a woman is. And then you get this ultra panic of how do we explain what this is? What, a female superhero? Yeah. Well, how do we make her believable? Like, are we still dealing with this? You know, like, you ever seen the film that's based around the creator of Wonder Woman? Because you know what he was into, don't you? And I'm not going to mention some of the things that he was into, but it was very strange behind the scenes of the creator. Like, honestly, bro, as a side task, I'll say to anyone, actually go and do your research on the person who created Wonder Woman and look into that man. There's a film about him. I can't remember what the film's called, but it's a film where it features him, and it's just, there's just things happening in his life that back when he created that character, you just would not have had that. Do you know what I mean? It's Liam McIntyre or Liam McKenzie or whatever his name is that plays the guy in the film.
Might be Liam McKenzie.
Yeah, the one who's in, he's in a few things, isn't he? You know what I'm on about, the dark-haired guy.
Yeah.
You know I'm on, a good-looking, dark-haired, rugged guy. Looks like he could be a future James Bond type of character. Yeah,
if I saw his picture, I'd know who you mean.
Oh, you know exactly what he's been in. He's been in something, and I just can't think of what he's been in before. He might even been in one of the superhero films before.
Now, interestingly enough, through all these failures of the Arrowverse, there has been one show who took everybody by surprise. He appeared in 2 episodes of Supergirl, and he's gone on to have his own series and is doing very well, and that's Superman and Lois. This one's been probably the surprise out of all of the mess that's going on at the moment with these shows. Superman and Lois has come out of the blue and just kicked the door down and said, this is how a superhero show should be. And now we're going into different territory now, HBO Max. So with Superman and Lois, they told a very different story. So instead of doing the typical comes to Earth from Krypton as a baby, which they did, they told a very different story. Superman's a dad. He's a husband. Him and Lois have got 2 boys. I thought this show surprised the hell out of me and delivered big time. And to this day, I would say at this moment, unless something changes my mind, Superman and Lois has turned out to be the best show in the Arrowverse. What would you say, Rex?
I mean, I'd say it's a at the stage of Superman and Lois, it's unquestionable. So that I don't even need to answer that. But I would actually argue that whether it's included in the Arrowverse or not, that feels like it's absolutely nothing to do with the Arrowverse.
Well, the interesting thing about
it's Superman, but I feel like it makes no sense that you had the Superman character eventually, and then you couldn't put Stephen Amell's Arrow in any scene with Superman. I just feel like is maybe officially, but deep down, guys, and I'm asking you guys out there that will be listening, deep down, is Superman and Lois really part of the Arrowverse? Because whatever the Arrowverse has been in the last 4 years is not the Arrowverse. It's just been an amalgamation of the Arrowverse, and it's been a figment of your imagination version of the Arrowverse. Let's be perfectly honest here, Warhawk. The Arrowverse between 2011, 12, and say 2016, that was one thing. If Superman and Lois was part of that, then yeah, I'd be like, yeah, just imagine how awesome that the series would have been if Stargirl and Superman and Lois and Peacemaker was all part of that version of the Arrowverse. Instead of now we've got to the HBO verse and the outside of the Arrowverse verse.
Well, originally, you know, Superman appeared in the first 2 episodes of season 2 of Supergirl, which were very popular. They went down very well, and it was always talked about whether or not to give Superman his own show, because although I enjoyed those 2 episodes he appeared in very much, I wasn't a fan of the way he was written, because they made him a bit weak. You know, they tried to, obviously it was Supergirl's show, but I always felt that because Superman's such a powerful character, larger than life, you know, he should be treated like a god when he appears in the show.
I really thought that he was a bizarro version of Superman when he first came into Supergirl, just simply because of how robotic that he was played. Now, I'm not sure if the actor was uncomfortable playing the role.
I think it was just a case of the way he was written. I mean,
sorry, let me say this first. It took me to go back to watch the Superman Returns film to see how almost Brandon Routh was forced to play that Superman role quite robotically, like he was a fish out of water sort of thing, despite the fact that we all know that Clark Kent grew up here on Earth. You know what I mean? Like, it's another side of this strangulation thing that I've talked about before with wrestling and with booking of certain things where, right, so you told us years ago with Smallville and Superman Returns that Superman came here as a baby, and we already kind of knew that before because of the Superman films. Now, normally what happens is we just fast forward to Superman being an adult. But we've also had the Superboy series and all that. At no point should Superman ever be portrayed as an adult man, as a fish out of water on this planet.
No, that's
correct. By the time that he starts to learn his abilities, he should be a guy. In fact, I'm going to go one step further. By the time that we get this Superman, that's a man, he should have been able to have scoured the globe for every single element, you know, thing that is going on in our world at all times. Like, not like he can hear it at all times, but you know what I mean? Like, we know that he can fly around the world. We know he can do all this. So it's like stop insulting our intelligence and then retconning the small little things that then contradict everything that we've seen from before. He should never be that robotic. He should never be a fish out of water. He should never be confused at his surroundings or where he is, unless he's obviously been given some kind of, you know, kryptonite or some kind of thing that's going to potentially harm him. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. I agree. The thing with Superman, when he appeared in the Arrowverse, as I said, he was good. And I thought I wouldn't mind to see Superman have his own show, but I don't want to see Superman treated that way as he was in Supergirl. I mean, he was weakened, you know, and they didn't really push him as powerful as Supergirl. I know it was Supergirl's show, but
why are they so protective of Batman when it comes to television? But yet they will just allow Superman to be portrayed in the most ridiculous way on television. Like, Clark Kent is completely and utterly useless in all shapes and forms. Like, we've seen this for nearly 40 years now, haven't we? Yeah. Whereas it's almost like they're scared to ever allow Bruce Wayne to be portrayed on TV. Like, what was this that I was reading about? There was supposed to have been like a Bruce Wayne TV series or whatever that they cancelled or whatever, that was supposed to have taken place sometime in between all this Arrowverse, which is like, well, yeah, maybe we should have focused more on building a Bruce Wayne television series than focusing on building random characters from the DC universe.
The reason why Batman has never appeared in these shows is because they look at Batman as a big draw. You know, that appearing
on the box office, doesn't he?
Yeah, he puts bums.
And they know that these TV series immediately destroy a lot of the vision. Like, and I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just gonna say, you don't watch the 1966 version of Batman and think, oh, this messes up the origin story of this, because that's not what you're watching that for.
No.
Whenever you watch any of these programs that feature Superman, Supergirl, any of these, they're not, I don't think they're deliberately doing it, but there is so many times over the last few years where they got it wrong. And I feel like Superman's such a high level character, and because we've seen him in films and all that, I just feel like it was the wrong way to go. Once again, where was that Deathstroke series that should have aired? Like, once again, where was this Captain Cold and the Fire Guy? Why didn't they get their own series? There were so many characters that could have been given series and just been and gone after 6 or 8 episodes. To give this guy the role of Superman now, so close to, you know, a Superman being in certain other films and stuff like that, it's like, I feel like they can't go any further than what they would have gone with, you know, the New Adventures of Superman. Like, remember that in the title, it still says Superman and Lois. So you still have to remember that this series features Lois Lane. And of course, in this version of Lois Lane, she's the one that's been retconned more. Once again, the Arrowverse has turned vulnerable women that need saving by the hero into these strong women that can't be touched. Yes, she's the daughter of some kind of army guy or whatever, Major Lane or whatever his name is. But does that make any difference? Come on.
No, but no, I totally agree. But I think with Superman and Lois, what they've done, and I think what's worked well for them is, yes, it is still part of the Arrowverse, and it is annoying that they don't really acknowledge that as such. I mean, we only had John Diggle make a cameo in one episode.
Would you want to acknowledge in 2021 that successful series was part of the Arrowverse? Because nobody remembers the Arrowverse except us remembers the Arrowverse. More time it's the people that probably don't watch any of the programs now that remember how good Arrow was. So they probably don't want people to get confused and think, why is this so good? But all the other series were almost unwatchable towards the end.
Well,
you
there's
can't
a good reason
compare
for
Superman
that.
and Lois. You can't compare Superman and Lois to the Flash in 2022. They are almost separate entities.
Well, the reason why they've done that is because they want to keep they want to keep it away from the Arrowverse shows as far as possible and want to establish it as its own thing, which is fair enough. But another thing that this show has over all of the other shows, and I think, you know, it shows, aside from the fact it's a very high budget show, you can see the budget's very, very high. The music's very, very powerful, almost like on the
Superman license as well is not going to come cheap, is it? Let's be honest.
No, it's not going to come cheap at all. It's going to be expensive. And you can, when you listen to the music, you watch the choreography, the filmography, you watch everything about it. You're not watching an episode of Superman and Lois. You're watching a movie. I mean, quite frankly, the only thing missing in this show, all due respect to Tyler Hoechlin, who's been amazing as Superman so far, is Henry Cavill. That's how good this show is.
Why cast a guy in the role when you've still got a contract dispute with the guy who plays the role? Why don't you force the guy who plays the role to play the role on TV and see if he's really that interested in playing the role? Yes, it would have cost them more money and the program might not have had the same budget, but it certainly would have been an eye-opener to have had a 4 or 5 series, which would have been more necessary, let's be fair, a 4 or 5 series with characters. I just feel like they should have just really, really had a sit down and said to themselves, like, what are we doing here? Like, seriously, what are we doing here? Can we actually make this universe viable at the same time as our TV universe? Or should we just bite the bullet and decide, let's have all these characters blend in as one? Just because it's a different guy behind the mask and it's not Ezra, it'll be Grant. No one's bothered about that. We still know it's the Flash, yeah? Just portray this. And they've done it to a certain extent with Peacemaker. Having those characters there, you know, you don't even get to see some of the characters. Why? Because it's obviously not them.
No.
I just feel like there's more to this. There's more, like, we're going to find out in a few years' time that behind the scenes that there were a lot of arguments to do with who should have been in these series.
Yeah. Well, and I think another reason why Superman and Lois has done so well, above all the Arrowverse shows is because the writing's there, and also HBO Max are involved, which brings us to another show that's taken everybody by surprise. And this is a show and a character. If you said to me 10 or 12 years ago, we're going to give this character a show, what do you think? I would have said, absolutely not. Nothing against the character, but it won't work. And that's Stargirl. Stargirl has been surprisingly,
By
again,
far the best character in the whole of the DC Arrowverse universe, TV verse, because they just got that character right.
absolutely. I would say for me that Superman and Lois and Stargirl in recent years or recent months, whatever you want to call it, they're the two best DC shows, period. And if I had to put a third one in there, probably Peacemaker. They just got it right. And this is where
I'd
now.
agree with all of that. And I'd even say, let's not forget as well, Warhawk, it was through me talking about, I think, Smallville and Supergirl that you even came across from Holiday's channel and seen that I wasn't just talking about wrestling. I was talking about other stuff as well, because I do enjoy, and I have always enjoyed, and if I'm honest, Stargirl was what brought me back to even, I would not even consider even discussing the Arrowverse without a lot of anger and a lot of frustration, like, you know, circa WWE 2014-15 booking. When you start talking about that, I get real frustrated and angry. And it's the same because I feel like it doesn't always have to go the way that the fans or any of the people see. When you see the majority of the fans wanted the audience, wanted the direction of the programs to go in a completely different direction, I feel like we've been punished, almost like, you know, when you look back at the Arrowverse and the whole thing, and I feel like Stargirl was the very first time in years that they just said, oh, this is what the fans want, and this is what the fans are going to get. This is what we can do with this character. Because that series looked like it was going to be just complete, colourful and bright. And like I said, one of the biggest things with that is they found the balance between filming in the daytime, which Arrow and all that suffered from, because they didn't do enough of it, and then filming in the nighttime when things got more spooky. They utilized it, and maybe that was just 3 letters: HBO.
Exactly.
You know, CW. If you're a CW network personnel and you're being forced to go around the world and listen to all of the podcasts that are based on your production or whatever, listen to me carefully when I say whatever HBO have done with Stargirl. Sit down, study everything that HBO do. Try and apply for a job firstly with HBO, because that'll probably save your, you know, future career and that. But at the same time, if you're going to stick with the CW, and this is a hint to the people that work there, focus on what they do. Minimize all the negatives and highlight all the positives. Stop trying to do too much of something that doesn't work, and cut out all the love and the drama. That's the one thing that Stargirl just couldn't really focus on, because obviously she's a young girl. They didn't want to overly focus on. And I'm sure down the line she'll get a love interest and etc., because they'll always do that. They can't help themselves. But I'm just glad that we got to see her portrayed as Stargirl, Warhawk, girl. Meaning she's a girl. We have to see her as what she's. We're not tuning in to see, oh, she's hot. Maybe there's some young lads that watch it and think that, but she was one of the first female characters that I'd seen that I was watching it because she was a young. This would be like watching Robin when he was young. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
see, this is that level of characters. If I'm not wrong,
Well,
this is the sidekick and younger generation of characters in the DC universe.
the thing with Stargirl, although it's not been around as long as the other shows, it's so far been absolutely fantastic. I just finished watching season 2 on DVD a few days ago, and for me, even in its short existence, season 2 is the best season they've ever done. I loved season 1. I thought season 1 was amazing. Season 2 just came in and just blew my mind. I thought, wow.
And I assume that you mean, or I presume that you mean, the best series they've ever done, as in out of all of the series, not just Stargirl.
I would say Superman and Lois and Stargirl are the 2 best DC shows they've ever done in anything.
Do you think, and this is where I need to ask you this question: do you think that there's a chance that we wouldn't have got a this type of quality with Supergirl, with Superman and Lois and Stargirl, if we hadn't have had the failure of the original Arrowverse? Because we have to cover all bases, don't we, when we're discussing this? Would these two series be as good as they are and tightened up as good as they are and tightened up as tight as they are if they had not failed with Arrow?
I think if not for HBO Max, if these shows were created under the CW umbrella with the rest of the Arrowverse shows, I think these shows would have been doomed from day one. But I think because HBO Max have such a tight knit on both of these shows, and I think they thrive for the better, if I'm honest.
How many officially of these shows have HBO got
DC
some involvement in? And I don't just mean control over, because obviously we understand with Stargirl that is a HBO, and in fact Stargirl's HBO, yeah, and so is Peacemaker. They're both HBO, aren't they? Or is Stargirl CW, or was it CW
no.
first?
See, Stargirl's not a CW show. It's a 100% HBO Max show, same as Peacemaker.
Weirdly enough, that's what saved the Arrowverse. I don't know how official that these series are, but until they give me a different name, I'm always gonna refer to these DC characters on TV as the Arrowverse. I feel like Stargirl and Superman and Lois technically saved the Arrowverse, so I feel like HBO has actually saved the Arrowverse at this point.
Well, Superman and Lois, although technically still credited as a CW show, you'll find that HBO Max are actually financing it. So you could say it's kind of like a HBO Max show in a way, because as we said earlier, if you look at the budget for Superman and Lois is a lot higher and a lot stronger than the other shows. If you look at it, and the writing's worlds away from what they're doing with the other shows, if you look very closely. Well, I think this is what's going to bring us to what we say now. Do you think it's time that DC shows go fully over to HBO Max? Because we're seeing all the CW shows all coming to an end. We've seen Black Lightning end. We've seen Legends of Tomorrow end. We've seen Arrow already end. Supergirl's ended. Flash is going to end after season 9. Batwoman's finished. Do you think maybe in the next year or two, or maybe 3 years down the line, we get all these characters?
Before we get there, bro, we're actually wrong. Stargirl is not a HBO production. It's actually a Warner Brothers and Greg Berlanti production.
The
first series of it aired on the DC Universe, which was just their
streaming
service. And the second series did actually air on the CW network. So it technically is part of the Arrowverse. It says here, establishing Stargirl as a existing on a parallel Earth.
Correct.
To the Arrowverse. So she is part of the Arrowverse. She just lives on a different verse. But that even makes it even more baffling. How did they get this so right with Stargirl? Maybe we're right. Maybe it was because of the ultimate failure of, the Arrowverse in the first place. They knew they had to get it right. I assume that season 3 of Stargirl will definitely be a HBO production. If not, it will be on HBO or whatever.
It will be. Stargirl season 3. I'm not sure. I mean, it's all finished. They've already done the post-production. It's all ready to go. And I think we're just waiting for a trailer and a release. And
you are right. Yeah, you are right. Ahead of the second series premiere, the CW renewed the series for a third series in May 2021. The renewal allowed the series to be co-financed by HBO Max as part of the larger deal between the CW and HBO Max. So actually, it's not actually DC that's actually asked HBO to help. The CW has been taken over by HBO, and they've just been told, look, we want control of these things. We can do better than you.
All there are these shows with Superman and Lois and Stargirl is they're just HBO shows that are just shown on CW, because you need a channel, you need a network to show your shows. That's what they are.
Well, I presume that obviously since that merger, then HBO obviously owns CW. So anyone who knows,
actually, from my understanding, Discovery have taken over CW, and that's why all these shows have been cancelled.
Oh, okay.
That's why.
I hope there's some kind of. I mean, there must be some kind of deal between Discovery and HBO then. or
Well, what
Discovery
I've
actually owns them.
from what I've been told, that they want to do a clean slate with everything. That's why all these shows have been cancelled, and the reason why the Flash has not been cancelled because they already announced that season 9 was going to be it. So it's going to be their final season. But as far as the rest of them, Discovery have looked at it like, well, these shows aren't doing well, so they're getting a shot. But I think the Flash still has a big enough following to get through for one more season. So that's why we're getting a season 9. And that's why all the other shows have been cancelled.
Discovery, listen to me clearly, Discovery. Any executives from the Discovery Network out there, listen to me carefully. Whatever character that you can conjure up, I am demanding a series that is based around because I know there's going to be one of these characters, a treasure hunting sort of superhero Indiana Jones character, because you've got all the documentaries on all the gold and all these things on Discovery and all this history stuff. You do all these gold hunters and all this stuff. Can we get a character that is based around some kind of gold, looking for gold, something like that? Build him, put him on your program. I'll watch that.
I think I know this kind of show we could have. Maybe it's something like Uncharted.
It'd be like an Indiana Jones Uncharted guy, but he would also be like involved in. I'd imagine that he, like a Moon Knight thing, that a character that got his powers in some kind of ancient Egyptian thing, and then, started using the power for the right of good and stopping people from, doing all bad stuff. But maybe there's somebody else who got power for the way of bad, and we build characters. I'm sure somewhere in the DC universe there'll be a character like that.
If there is, I think there might be one that exists out there, but there's a strong possibility we could see something like that one day.
You never know what Discovery and HBO and all these companies could do when they bring all their programming together.
Absolutely. So as we move along here, we're slowly getting close to wrapping this up. The question in this final part here we're going to ask, this is both to ourselves, is it time for the DC shows to be fully moved to the HBO Max? What do you think, Rex?
Well, I think it's obvious now, isn't it? I think it's completely and utterly just factual now. Like, HBO Max can clearly do way more with this universe than what the CW could do. It just seems like the CW is a smaller network that was running half of these series. And remember, Greg Berlanti is basically involved in the production of all of these. Yes. And I feel like a little bit that he might have got a little bit burnt out. I feel there's been signs in the past that he's been burnt out from other things. I feel like, I'm sure he was potentially involved in one of those Green Lantern, or that Green Lantern film, or something to do with the Green Lantern. But either way, I feel like there's so much with HBO. I feel like there's other people behind the scenes. Some of these people may have or may have not worked with other programs that have been on HBO, but we know that HBO has had some real successful programming. They basically helped keep the DC universe together while the thing that was happening worldwide took place. So why not give them an option to just take over this, and hopefully we can just get something in the future that is good.
Well, I think with the way things have gone, I think it makes a lot of sense to have these DC characters go to HBO Max, because judging by their track record so far, it's very obvious that HBO Max have proved that when it comes to DC, they can get the job done. And I think what would help also for these shows is not have so many episodes, because I think that's another thing where the Arrowverse has failed. Too many episodes. You might get 5 or 6 episodes which are fantastic, and the rest is just filler or just not even worth talking about. And I think on a HBO Max format, have a mini series, maybe 7 or 8 episodes.
HBO is not normally known for filler.
No, they're not. That's what I mean.
Big budget, straight episodes, hour-long episodes as well, because you don't normally get breaks in their episodes, which is good.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to be honest. I've watched 2 series that HBO have, and I know it's HBO Max, but I don't care. I've watched 2 series that HBO have produced in their time: Sopranos and Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
There is no argument to what those programs are.
No.
And I'm not saying that we can have, you know, a full universe of those kind of series. But I'm saying just one of these programs could benefit from that level. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
If just one of them.
I think on the format with HBO Max, have like a mini series, 8 episodes, as you say, hour long plus length. I think it would work because when it comes to mini shows, HBO Max absolutely rule. And as I said, that's what's hurt a lot of the Arrowverse CW shows. Too many episodes, a lot of filler. You might get 5 or 6 episodes which are good, but the rest of them are just not worth talking about.
All these stupid things that are going on behind the scenes, even the point of like pregnancies and stuff like that. Why do we need any of that?
No, of course you don't.
And more just outright action and just. I mean, I'm not saying the whole episode has to constantly be action, but you know what I'm on about.
Yeah.
Like say, if they cut out 7 episodes of the series, that cuts out all of the filler.
Definitely, I agree. So I think, you know, we'll have to see what happens really, but I think if we can get shows with bigger budgets like Superman and Lois have, like Stargirl, then I think in the long run these characters would, you know, would be better off for us. But again, we'll just have to wait and see really. But I think the Arrowverse, because it's been almost 10 years now since it all started, I think the Arrowverse will go down in history as too much of a good thing. It started off very well, got very successful, but the very thing that made them successful killed them in the long run.
Too much too soon. That's exactly what the Arrowverse comes down to, and it's also exactly the same as the DC movie universe, the DC extended universe. It's just too much too soon.
Yeah.
We didn't need any of that. It's unnecessary. Stop holding off things, and this is actually going to turn into a bit of a final rant. Stop holding off, because Warner Brothers is there are words beginning with C and A that I'm not going to use right now, but Warner Brothers is just poison. Like, honestly, I'm not even joking. Like, surely they have not sat in their ivory tower so long that they can't hear what the fans think. Like, it can't be the production people at DC. I'm not sure how much power that the people who made Batman, who made these characters, have got over this. This is clearly a Warner Brothers issue where everything has to flow smoothly down this formulaic path of bring him in as like a badass, and then within 6 months he's being tamed by this woman who can then control him to a certain point, and everybody who likes him is then going to start to hate her, but we like the couple effect. It's like, yeah, but this is Superman, or this is Batman, or this is Arrow. This is not, EastEnders or Coronation Street. It's like, yeah, but you know what? People like a little bit of drama. No, they don't. What we need things exploding. We need fast cars. We need things that can fly, gadgets, lots of different sorts of lasers and stuff like that, because inside of us all, we're all 10.
I think with the whole drama thing, if you're going to have drama in your stories, make sure it works and it's told right.
Do it well. And Killer Frost, that had legs and potential, mystery, suspense, and also has got the whole My Girl and Rogue and Gambit thing of you can't be together because of the fact of your elemental powers. She's cold and you're hot. She's ice and you're fire. Now, maybe no one's ever thought of that before, but I did. Right, so Caitlin is so Killer Frost goes out with Firestorm. That's interesting. Never got the love story that I wanted. But
no, never got explored.
We got the ones that people were aware of, like Barry and Iris, which I can't complain about because it was blatantly written in the annals of the Flash as origin and stuff. But the Felicity and Arrow, the Felicity and Oliver thing, or Olicity or whatever they called it, and all that other stuff, it was like, come on, can we have just got, the suspenseful, rather than killing off Firestorm, the original one, you know what I mean? Oh, it just left a bad taste in my mouth. And it turned out that the guy who actually played the original Firestorm was actually Stephen Amell's cousin.
Oh, Robbie Amell.
Yeah, Robbie Amell. So I'm like, so you hired a guy that couldn't actually be the character for more than a year. Anyway, because I'll just get into a crazy rant about what should have been and what shouldn't have been. You know what I mean? But yeah, in the long run, I see you can't really see the Arrowverse as a success. It was a success at one stage, but I
Yes.
feel like it's WCW, isn't it? It
Yeah.
went
Too much of a good.
right
Too
to the
much of a
top
good
and
thing.
peak of the mountain, and then just fell off real quickly.
Yeah.
Always quicker on the way down, guys. Trust me.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Definitely. No, I agree. It was too much of a good thing, really. The very thing that made them successful is what killed them. And plus, they tried to be something that they weren't. If they had just stuck to their guns, who knows what could have happened, really. But it is what it is.
Shall we give this the whole of the Arrowverse? Shall we give it an overall rating, regardless of everything that we've spoke about? And I'm even going to include Stargirl in that and Peacemaker. Everything that has been involved in the Arrowverse, I'm going to say it started off at like a 9, and it turned out to be about a 3.
I would give it an 8.5 because it wasn't completely perfect. But towards the end, I'm going to give it probably a 4.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to work out now, like where would my average or median be then? Like, if it was about a 9 at the start and it ended up about a 3, I'm gonna have to go with a 6 on her. So overall, I'm gonna go with a 6, and I'd probably say that you should be somewhere around about 6.5 as an overall, right? Because the good times were good, and you can't ignore that they did have maybe 5 or 6 series of really good television, yeah. And then they had another maybe 2 series worth of half decent watchable television, but they were scattered around all the other programs. But then they had 6 or 7 just average and bad, terrible, different series. But yeah, like I said, I'm probably going to give it about a 5.5 and a 6. So I'll say 6 is fair. Overall, it just was meh. It was just come see, come saw.
Yeah, I probably would. Now thinking about it, I think 6. I think 6 is more honest.
Yeah, like I said, at the end, you can't deny it was right down there at the end. A lot of it was terrible, but then it has had a bit of a resurgence that you can't ignore if you do include the recent series. Like, we gave Peacemaker quite a raving review. I've already said I like Stargirl, and I'll definitely be watching series 3. Superman Lois has been watchable for me. Legends of Tomorrow has had its moments in this series, so has The Flash. I'm going to say, 6 is fair because it did go to about a 3, but it has managed to build itself back up to about 4 or 5. So I'd say, 6 is definitely a fair result for the whole. And that's not a good result. When you look at Game of Thrones overall, I'd say that was at least an 8.59. But you look at The Sopranos, I'd say 8.59. But so when you look at this, it's not. And you can say that this is on the same level. Like, maybe you want to compare this to something different, but let's say Smallville, for instance. I'd say Smallville was at least a 7.5. Nothing in this series in the Arrowverse has stayed continuously at 7.5, except obviously Stargirl and Peacemaker and Superman and Lois, and they've only had 2 series maximum.
Well, Peacemaker's only had 1. Superman, Lois, and Stargirl have had so far 2. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
5 series. We've had 5 series of maybe about 7.5. Yeah.
Yes.
We had maybe 5 or 6 series right at the start with Arrow and the Flash and the first season of Supergirl that were about a 6, 7, 8 at best times 9 sometimes. But you can't deny there were a few series in the middle that were really 4, 3s, 4s, maybe even, I'm going to be honest and say, season 2 of Black Lightning, some of what I've seen of Batwoman, it's definitely down there in the 2s and 3s.
Oh yeah, I would agree. I probably would say Batwoman season 2, although it was watchable and there was some good stuff there. Yeah, I would probably have to put it a bit lower.
By far the worst, I think Constantine was not looked at as the Arrowverse. I think if you watch that as a standalone series or as an Arrowverse series, you'd probably still rate that higher.
It was very high.
Batwoman. I'd say Constantine still sat in there at about a 7. I think they would have ruined the character towards the end anyway. But if you look at Constantine's character being in the whole of the Arrowverse, he's still up there at about a 7. He's the only character apart from Stargirl and Peacemaker that I think has actually held his status from being like a 7 or an 8, because you can't really include Superman in that, because Batman and Superman are always going to sit high. Because
Oh yeah, of course they will. So we've both given our rating an honest 6 for the Arrowverse.
I think that's fair. I think it's
That's
fair as a whole. I think we could be a lot more negative, but I think if we'd have done this video a year and a half ago, I would have given it like a 2.
probably,
Even
yeah.
the whole series like a 2, because I would have never have known about Stargirl or about Peacemaker or anything like that. So it's definitely only a 6 because of the trajectory that we're going in, and that's only because we have gracefully added in some of the series that have come over the last few years that really aren't part of the Arrowverse, but they're technically, as I just proved before, they are Arrowverse characters like Stargirl and like Superman and Lois. So, you know, they have brought back whatever faith, and I am looking forward to seeing the future for these characters, but I don't ever want to see any of that stuff that was on the CW again.
No, I don't think you will now. I think that time's long past now. I think even the public are sick of it.
He took the repeats of Arrow off TV in Britain because they were so popular in season 1 and 2 that they realized there's no point in airing past season 2 because people just won't watch.
No, you might get people who want to watch season 3, but I think that's about it, really.
You know how good that those 2 series were, and by the time that you get to season 3, it's such a drop off. Like, not even it's bad, it's just because of the convoluted stuff. But we're not going to get back into that because I think that we do need to close this down. There may be more to say on this subject, and I'm sure that there will be in the future, but I think that we have for now finally said enough about the Arrowverse and its absolute failure to hold its own self together.
Yeah, I think we've more or less covered the success and failures of the Arrowverse and why DC shows need to go to the HBO Max. I think we've set out what we needed to do, really. So that's going to be it from both of us. We're going to wrap this up now. Where would you rank the Arrowverse? Do you think it was successful? Do you think it was a failure? Where did you think it went wrong? Do you think what we said was true, or do you have a different opinion on how you think the Arrowverse was preceded by the public? And also, do you think the DC shows should go to HBO Max? And if so, which characters would you like to see on the HBO Max in their own series? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below. RexDaBoss, this was an absolute pleasure sitting here with you, talking about the Arrowverse and its history, and look forward to doing more in the near future with you. Great having you here.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I thank everyone who is listening at this point. You'll definitely hear stuff in the future. Like he said, what is the future for the Arrowverse, especially on HBO? You know, maybe we should be considering bringing back the Arrow. But you guys let us know what you think, and obviously I'll be here again, I'm sure.
So until next time, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.